Okay, everybody, welcome and thank you for joining Sharon and I and JG for Expand and Evolve or Remain and Repeat. And I'm really excited to bring this content to you today. And I did receive some of your questions and just input that you gave of what you were curious about. So I will be taking those into consideration as we go through this webinar today. And I want to introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. My name is Teresa Campos, and I am an intuitive astrologer and spiritual life coach. And I work with servant leaders who are here and want to make a difference in the world and want to live a soul-centered life. So I help them self-evolve and move through that process, and at the same time living a lifestyle that makes them feel fully alive. So welcome, everybody. I just want to do a little bit of a recap here. We did a mastermind webinar about 3 weeks ago, and that was called Finding Light in Uncertainty. And if you look at your chat, what I did do for anybody who wants to check that replay out, I put the links up that you can copy and paste and get those replays if you would like to. And what was really, I went back and listened to it, and what I found so enriching is to the things that we were talking about. I mean, we brought in the theme of grace. We brought in the lower 3 chakras of the body and how those are part of what is the theme that is occurring, that we are moving through and working on right now during this time. And we also talked about the victim and the pain body, as well as how we seem to be, like JG brought up, there he is, he brought up of how this is a loop. And so before we dive right into everything, I want to continue the recap by going back to early January. And the reason why I want to go back to early January is that I did a webinar back then, and the webinar was on the astrology for 2020. And when I was going through my notes to get this webinar together for us, I read through those notes, and I was really kind of taken back by myself, of not about me, but about what I had written and what I had shared at that time, and how all that has come to fruition right now, with where we're at. And the part that was so interesting to me is that I remember writing those notes out. And when I was writing those notes out, one of the things that I was saying to myself is, oh, Teresa, are you being a little too dramatic here? Like, you're saying that the old world is going to crumble and there's going to be this new world. And you're talking about the Darwinian selection on a societal and global level. And you're talking about how that this is about death and rebirth, and this is going to be a huge change that's going to rock our world. And at that time, as far as my mind went, was more our political system here in the United States. Little did we all know that what we're going through right now was going to be what this big old world, new world change was going to bring about. So in reading that, it really compelled me to bring some more of that information forward as we open up this piece right here for us and what we're going to be talking about. And so I want to go over a little bit of that so that we can kind of just ground all of that and get that into this place right here of bringing it to expand or evolve or remain and repeat. So we are obviously living in a very transformational time right now for humanity. One of the themes that I spoke about back in January was this was a ripening of a karma. And these astrological planets, this astrology that's occurring, is all these archetypes that I'm going to be talking about, all will reflect what is the themes that maybe some of you might be going through right now in your life and what we're seeing as a whole. So not only is this a ripening of karma time, but it is also the archetype of the enactor of karma itself. So we have a couple different dynamics here going on. We have like whose time has come, and then the enactor of whose time has come. So we have the dismantling, as well as we have the bringing this up into the surface to see how this is going to be changing us in our lives. So what we're witnessing here is really a lot of growth and the potential for higher ideals to come in. We're looking at the mystical truth that all is one. We're looking at global unity here. And this notion of karma has everything to do with, it's almost like, I want to put this in the terms of like a spiritual tax man, right? If there was such a thing as a spiritual tax man, this is the energy that's occurring. It's like, okay, it's time for you to pay the debt. It's time for you to, like, all of these things that we have ignored, pushed aside, or been trying to change. Like, it's now time to pay the debt. And in that, it's kind of like there's this gatekeeper, and this gatekeeper is saying there's a threshold crossing, people, that you have to walk through here, and this is the threshold crossing. And it's going to feel like limitation, it's going to feel like responsibility, it's going to feel like the energy has been contracted, and there's going to be scarcity. And with that, we always know that there's some kind of pain and suffering along with it. And this ties into that whole Darwinian piece that I brought up earlier. So again, this is about death and rebirth. This is the energy of the planet Pluto, where Pluto brings the poison to the surface. And it's like, let's have fresh ground. We need fresh ground because we need to rebuild. So this is all part of these archetypal things that are happening. And then we also have another energy and archetype that says, but this is about progress and prosperity and potential. So there's these conflicting, very earth, solid, dense energies, and yet there's this, but how do we move this forward? How do we move and unearth this forward? And here we are today on this mastermind webinar, and we're in a new moon. We're in the sign of Taurus, which is very earth energy. And so there is this instability that is happening, and trying to create some form of stability. So with that comes this restlessness and this energy and this breaking of the old in order to find the new ground that we are embarking upon. So I'm going to pause right here. I just let out a lot here, and I'm going to introduce Sharon here, and JG's trying to get on, and I'm going to work on that. And after I turn it over to Sharon here, and so I'm going to read a short little bio here of Sharon. And Sharon is a very good friend of mine, colleague, and one of my healers in my life. And Sharon is an intuitive craniosacral therapist and Akashic record reader. Her skill as a craniosacral therapist has helped her hone her ability to manage and interpret energetically and intuitively the body. These combined skills facilitate the healing of physical, emotional, and spiritual trauma for those who seek her help. Through her business, A Sense of Touch, she works in person and remotely. Okay, Sharon.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us. And JG, I can hear your voice. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, JG.
I've been on hold all this time.
Okay, go ahead and just kind of hang out there, JG, and we'll be addressing you in just a moment. Right on.
All right, thank you.
It's very touching for me because I see some people out there that I haven't seen in a really long time. And I don't want to call you out, but you know who you are. And so what's really fascinating for me, the last time we were on, I was like, I know what I'm going to say, and I know what I'm going to do, and everything just like fit perfectly. This time, not so much. I'm being the empath this time. I've been struggling and dealing with depression, but I think that that's part of what we're all going to be, or some of us are probably already in that place for various reasons. One of the things that when Teresa and JG and I talked previous to now, we said, anybody that's going to be on, they're going to all be light workers. Or if that doesn't fit for you, people who are wanting to evolve and to be present with what's happening in this present time, and really have a desire to alter their facial expression, their personal expression. And so having said that, I thought, okay, I have to show up authentically, which means that I have to show up in a way that means if I feel not so like celebratory, which is like, I know that Teresa and JG are feeling a lot more celebratory than I am. Then I'm going to present to you that other side of how we can also struggle and be light workers.
Oh, thank you.
Are you there?
Yeah, no, I got it. Thank you for the vulnerability there, Sharon. I think that's really helpful for us, especially, of course, obviously for right now. So here, I'm going to, JG, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I'm going to read your bio, okay?
All right,
So,
please.
JG, Soul Messenger, is a spiritual intuitive, medium, spiritual life coach, motivational speaker, and co-producer of host of Sacramento Soul Talks. Psychic since childhood, JG's connection with the divine expanded several years ago after his near-death experience. A 3-week coma and remission from stage 4 lymphoma, JG is now dedicated to inspiring others to realize their magnificence through spiritual community activism, workshops, and spiritual coaching. Okay, JG, I'm going to let you take it from here and just what's up for you right now? What's coming up?
Well, pretty much more of what we had shared at the last webinar, but really coming in very, very strongly that this is a time for celebration. And I know that sounds weird, but what we're celebrating is a new paradigm that's happened. We are literally anchoring in the 5th dimension and getting ready to usher in the age of Aquarius, which is going to happen, as you know, within the next 4 years. What I've been getting is everything that's happening with politically on the scene with the virus. It's a loop that's being played out. For everyone that's involved in that loop right now, they have a karmic debt that they're paying on some level. And
sorry.
Okay, I guess I keep getting muted and unmuted for some reason. Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go for it.
Okay. And so I've been channeling, with the readings that I've been doing, it's been coming through, and even the readings that I've had for other clients, is that this is a time that each of us is being called to be still and to go inside and find out what is it for us to do as light workers. Everyone that is in this webinar right now obviously is a light worker. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been called to do this webinar. And so our responsibility is to remember who we really are and to hold that light and hold that space that we're anchoring in this new paradigm, that the new possibility. And we're seeing it reflected everywhere. Physically, we're looking at the planet, it's healing itself, the skies are blue, the waters are getting clear, nature is healing itself. We're healing on connecting differently. People are being more kind, helping each other out. And yet we have the opposite side that's happening where people are hoarding and angry and going out and protesting. Those are the ones that are caught in this dynamic of the loop. And so I've been told, me personally, to stay out of the loop, and that what mine is to do is to remember that I am in the light, and that I am to say I am the light, and that I am anchoring in the new age of Aquarius. So my 2 buzzwords is light and Aquarius. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm not sensitive to what's going on, but it means that I focus more on the positive things that I can do at this time. If someone is in need, I can reach out and help. If someone needs food, I can do that. If I'm called to go and make a phone call to someone, my job is to tune in spiritually and get connected. Mm-hmm. I could probably go in more deeply, but generally that's the bottom line. It's a time for each of us to individually connect. It isn't a time for us to just get together and be collective. It's time for us to do the work and look at what is mine to let go of.
Thank you,
And what
JG.
can I envision? What can I envision for the world?
Thank you, JG. And I think what I'm hearing in that is that you spoke to the expand and evolve. That's the energy that we want to, tap into. And I want to go to what Sharon brought up, is that there's remain and repeat. And while, yes, I'm in a celebratory type of an energy, I also am seeing patterns within myself that are part of my remain and repeat patterns in my life. And what I want to bring up here, I think that's really could be helpful for people, is the second chakra, because the second chakra are where patterns are developed and can be repeated. Second chakra is really the time that we're in. We're in this very feminine time. We're in a time of creativity. And there's two words that came up when I was putting this together as well. And one of the words is innovate, and the other word is pivot. And so those words came in because I was thinking, okay, how do I not remain and repeat? I have to innovate. I have to pivot myself in another direction so that I am not on that continual hamster wheel of that same shadow piece that has come up from, I didn't know it was back there, and here it is. So Sharon, can you say a little bit about what I just spoke about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm going to preface this whole thing with a reading that I did just before I came on. I was in the Akasha and I was asking about this group at large, all of you, and what is the energy and what do all of you desire from us. What I got was that as a collective, all of you, as a collective, you are all very light and you're really ready and curious. Now, this brought me a little bit out of my depression, because it's like, okay, you're not all in the same place that I'm at. You're excited and you want creativity. You want to know, what can I do next? And you want answers. So I'm going to do the best I can, but I want you to notice that at the bottom of the screen, there is a chat. If you have a question that you want us to help you with, like if you're struggling with something, then that's where that's my forte. I can, in the moment, access energies and be able to help. But in the meantime, what I want to show you is, JG touched on this. We are all in a time of having to go into solitude. We are in solitude because we're forced to, but in a way, it's like the perfect storm, because there's chaos going on out there. If you're a light worker or if you are an intuitive, more than likely you are an empath. And if you're an empath, you cannot help but feel what's going on out there. So the difference between you being an empath and feeling the fear or the anger or whatever it is that you are susceptible to feeling, the thing that you have to remember is that is outside of you. That's not in you. It triggers and mirrors that space in you that says, oh yeah, I know about that. I know about fear. I know about depression. I know about anger. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stay there. As someone whose vibration is evolving, your vibration, as someone said, like the protesters, their vibration is very low. So even though that might trigger some uncomfortableness in you, that's just a mirror. And we have to always remember that we're vibrating at a higher level. So even though I'm feeling, a little like, my thing is, am I going to do this and I'm going to feel shame? Am I going to do this and I'm not going to say the right thing? I was in the records earlier and they told me, stop it and just move on, because this is what we're supposed to do. Each and every one of you knows where your repeat patterns are, and you also know what the next level is for you. And so being in the quiet means that you have an opportunity to link up with the piece of you that you don't even know exists. And that's the beauty of this, to access that.
Yeah, thank you, Sharon. Thank you. JD, do you want to say something before I? Okay. I know.
Yes, I think I want to echo something again. Is like when we're in that, and I'm going to go back to the loop. When we're in the loop, we're trying to find some kind of solution when we get triggered. When we're in that, we're looking for solutions in that loop. And what I get from my guides is that that energy is already dead. It's already happened. And it's playing over and over again. There are no answers in that loop. And what you said, Sharon, was very, very important. It's when we find ourselves in it, and I know when I find myself watching CNN or I watch, you know, what's going on, and I'm going, why can't they just get it? I'm busy, not even realizing that I'm trying to come up with a solution, and I can't find a solution to something that's already happened and it's already dead. It's for me to look at and say, this is not what needs to be repeated and brought back to life. It is dead. It's dead energy. Oh, I'm caught in that loop. I need to get out of it. What can I do to let go of it? What's my shadow work that I need to let go of, like what you mentioned, Teresa? What is mine to look at? Let me put that energy. But most importantly, which I'm not hearing anyone really speak of, is hold that space by visioning. What do you want Mother Earth to look like? What do you want your communications to be like? What is the best outcome that you can envision? How can you support that idea? What can you do that supports that? Because really, thoughts create. And if we realize that what we pay our attention to manifests, we can anchor it in. This is a very pivotal point in our, call it evolution on Earth. We have an opportunity here for something really great. You know, there's so many things that we can do differently, that we can connect, and people are doing that. I don't want things to go back to the status quo. I don't want things to return to what was there. I want us to come up with innovative ideas of, let's talk about work. Most people are working from home if they are working. And when it's time to go back, because a mother's going to probably say, hey, look, I'm really enjoying my kids. Can't I work from home? And so that whole work ethic could change into something, a much better way of operating. I mean, it's the little things that we can change that's going to anchor, quote, heaven here on earth.
Right.
And that's where our focus needs to be.
Right.
You know, and I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Teresa, isn't that where astrologically it's showing that we're headed?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you brought up, I'm going to bring in the word values. I think we might have talked about that before, but that's what's also being redefined here through this stillness, through this restriction. So we're in a place of restriction where we don't have choices in the way that we have before. And so what happens when we're in a position where we don't have choices? Well, we have to find other choices. We don't have to, but we can choose to find other choices, other ways of doing and being in the world, in our life. And so that's actually an opening where it feels like a contraction. The opposite is actually true. This is all really a paradox. Okay, how do we restrict and control in order to open and expand? Okay, and so the constriction can feel like a remain and repeat, but that is not what this is. This is the expansion. And the other thing, go ahead.
The other thing I just want to bring up, for several months I had been getting the word amplify your light, amplify who you are, you know, amplify. And then it dawned on me, what's happening right now, everything is being amplified. The good and the shadow is being amplified. What do you want to amplify? And this is a time of what you hit it right on the head. Expansion is the greatest word. We're being called to expand into who we really, really are. A much greater version of what we think we are.
And so in that amplification, the amplification can be the shadow. If that's where you
exactly
are on your path right now, that's what you need. That's what's being asked to be looked at. My shadow is being amplified. So I want to bring this other piece in before I switch over to you, Sharon. Is Monica had asked a question about how, or she had commented on, she's feeling almost kind of guilty because she's not in this place of doom and gloom like her family is, and that's actually something that has come up in question for me as well with some of my clients. And so how I put this to is that there's a difference between fear and awareness. Fear is going to make us feel like we're in victim. Fear is going to make us feel like we're in doom and gloom. So we can be either in fear of the situation occurring or in awareness of it. And in awareness, yes, I am aware of what can happen. I'm aware that I could possibly, get COVID-19. I'm aware of these things. It doesn't mean I'm at the effect of those. So therefore, I'm not in victim of it. And so there can be a level of, like, somebody had asked me, how do you feel, Teresa? Do you feel comfortable when somebody says, how are you doing? And you say, I'm doing really well. How does it make you feel? And so I kind of consider who am I speaking to. And for the most part, I'm going to say I'm doing well, but there's other times when I am going to be considerate of other people who might be struggling. And maybe change that. It's not that I'm denying myself or that I am, giving up my power in that way. I'm just being compassionate to whom it is that I am speaking with, because I feel that's what this time is about as well, is us being socially responsible to the compassion of others for where they're at and holding the space for them in that way.
And that's what's being amplified for you.
Yes.
Your compassion is being amplified.
Thank you.
So if I can add.
Yeah.
So Monica, I read your little note here, and you want some suggestions on how maybe you can present yourself to your family. If you don't feel the doom and gloom, that's wonderful. It shows that you've done a lot of work, and you should really, as much as you can, keep your energy at that level. It's wonderful. In terms of how do you deal with your family, compassion, this is how it works for me. It's about how we can be present in the moment for other people. They can be in a vibration that is not like yours, but that doesn't mean that you can't lower your vibration so they can feel as if you're with them, which is really important, because when a person listens to another person's story, if they stay at a higher vibration, it makes them feel as if they're not really being heard. And it's so, what I mean by this also is that if you match their energy and you become a listener, that's all you have to do is listen. The thing that as an evolved person that you need to be very conscious of is that you are there meeting them, but your vibration still is at the place where you reside. Because you don't want to
can I just jump in?
Well, let her finish.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
So you don't want to jump into the rabbit hole with them, because healing comes from being touched, and being touched is when vibrations meet. But as someone who also knows how to stay elevated and be where they're normally at, that's where you can show them that you can meet a person where they're at, and you can still be your own person, and have and attain your own sense of higher potential. So I hope that was helpful.
Yeah, that was great. Go ahead, JG. Are you going to comment on that?
Yeah, yes. I don't want to seem like I'm contradicting you,
It's
Sharon,
okay.
but I just want to say this, that I don't think we should ever lower our vibration, ever. You know, if anything, like I said, we amplify that. It doesn't mean that I'm not cognizant of what you need. I go to spirit, and spirit will guide me what to say to you. And, you know, but I think you can uplift someone by staying in your vibration of light, by staying in that high watch. You know, you can still be compassionate. You can still listen. You can still give them what they need, but you stay in that light. Because I'm reminded of what I think I had said it the last time, is a nation that says, I hate war, will not bring peace about, because they're still manifesting the energy of hate. But a nation that loves peace will bring it about because they're manifesting love. So it's all about love. And all we really have is a bunch of fear going on, you know, which is the absence of love. And so I think it's our responsibility as light workers to hold that high watch, that high vision. You know, I may not express it to you, but I stay high. I stay on that high vibration. And what it does for me, it gives me more compassion. It gives me more understanding. And sometimes it gives me just the right thing to say or not to say. It helps me at times not to say anything and just be in that space of support for them. And as far as family members, it means that I don't participate when they start talking about how, you know, I hate this and I hate that and I'm against this. I don't correct them and say, well, I love, you know, because that's a spiritual ego. I listen to what they're saying. What I'm hearing is I'm frustrated. I'm in pain, you know, and so I'm going to support you. I'm going to support you and listen. But I'm not going to go down in that level and get in with you. I hope I'm making sense of what I'm saying. I think we have to be careful not to get caught into it, but hold that high.
Can I clarify?
Yeah, clarify. I know I totally get it.
So when I said to meet them where they're at, a person who works with others pretty intimately like I do, when I meet with somebody where they're at, it doesn't mean that I lower my vibration. I said at the very end, I keep my vibration. I know who I am present, but healing occurs when the snap, crackle, pop of being heard occurs. And if I keep my vibration high, they can't meet me. So all I'm saying is that, and you're right, JG, absolutely, we have to know where we are in the scheme of things, and that we want to keep it high. But I hope that some of you also understand what the point that I'm trying to make, especially when we're dealing with loved ones, especially when we're dealing with something that's very can feel very, let's see, vulnerable and scary. I think that if I'm meeting somebody there, it doesn't mean that I'm meeting them in fear or fright. I'm meeting them in a place where I feel compassion and empathy.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for clarifying that. I did get what you meant. I know you well enough to know how you work and operate, so I did understand. And again, thank you, JG, for also saying what you said, because I think both of those pieces were important here. I also want to just say that the world of energy is something that is it's very subtle. It's very subtle, and when working or being with members of other people. Like one of the things that Monica mentioned in the chat just now is that she feels like a sense of judgment because she's going out and exercising. And so, you know, what I'm hearing is that the family is being triggered. Their own fears are being triggered by you going out and doing something where they feel they need to be controlled and contracted. And maybe the fear for you in itself that, oh, wow, she's going out into the world, that, you know, I don't know the story, but that's kind of just some pieces there, is that we become so, we can become so triggered by other people's actions and reactions to things. But being able to hold our energy in the vibration of people that are struggling and are in fear, of course, is very important, as well as us being able to hold space for them and in those interactions, because that's something that like what JG said, is if we are, you know, if we have that spiritual ego, well, I'm not tripping on it, you know, maybe you are, but I'm not, then, you know, there's no compassion in that in itself. So I hope that those last things that were spoken about are, people have clarity on that. So yeah, so Christina's comment was, yes, they are stymied by their fear. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Sharon, for mentioning the chat earlier. I failed to do that in the beginning. Thanks for the reminder. If somebody has any comments or questions, that would be awesome. I do want to touch base a little bit here on suffering, because one of the participants sent an email to me and asked a little bit to talk a little bit about the suffering, and I'm not quite sure in what respect, but we can maybe start with this aspect, is that there are a lot of people out there suffering, and I am going to say that there are people out there that will remain and repeat, and that's, I don't say that with any judgment at all. And so, like, how do we hold space for that as we sit here in this group here? You know, how, like Sharon, how would you hold space for people, and also to help anybody's heart who's on here right now that is feeling the weight of what's going on in the world?
Yeah, that's a real tough one, because I think we all again take in emotional energies differently, some more than others. I think the thing we always have to remember is that if we have to distinguish what is our suffering and what is the suffering of others. We can have empathy for the suffering of others, but I think each of us has a big enough job to figure out what our own suffering is. And that's what our job is right now. If you feel a bit of suffering because you have a hard time staying in your house by yourself, like, you know, some of us are here alone, and if that is something that is difficult for you, I'm going to encourage you to look at that, and it's an opportunity for you to transform that in a way that maybe you've never thought to look at it. It is only in the silence and in that place where we have never been before, to travel inside of ourselves to say, what is it that I don't know? What is it that I can learn from this? And if we keep that in curiosity and wanting to actually transform it, then answers will come, but they don't come like snap, like easy. I have to say that it is in the suffering that we learn how to figure out what it is that we're missing in our lives. And everybody's thing is different. Everybody's way of figuring it out is going to be different. One of the things that I feel is really important is, in this time of quietness, how do we access our essence? We know what we look like when we go out into the world and we do our job, and, you know, we present ourselves to the world in a way that, you know, makes us feel comfortable. But then when we're by ourselves, what do we look like? How would we present ourselves when there's no one to see us? what do we look like and how do we feel? And it is in that space that I feel is an opportunity to transform.
Yeah, that's wonderful. JG, do you have a comment?
I think I pretty much said what it is. For me, what is working for me is to disconnect from the noise, to not buy into that as being my reality, and that I'm a witness to it. And what if I see judgment, what in me judges that I need to work on? You know, so I want to work on myself. That's the important thing, and hold the high watch, and just be anchored in the knowing that it's just like, in order to get that pearl, it has to be agitated. And so I'm seeing everything that's happening right now is agitating us awake. You know, do I want more of this? Do I want to live this way? Do I want this to be my world? And if not, what do I really envision? And hold that space. Mm-hmm. And I think the way to get out of the suffering, if we're suffering, is to recognize that it's our own personal suffering that we're aware of. You know, we can only affect the change in ourselves. And what radiates out from us is hope, is love. That's what's going to heal this planet, is us radiating love and light.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to just to bring up here is that we are all like what kind of how this whole conversation started is that we're all at different places. We're all having different experiences. And if yours doesn't look like another's, it doesn't make it any less or better than each other's, because we're all just having our own experience. And I think that's one of the important pieces to honor here with all of us, is that there are people that are going to be in more fear than others. And I also think it's really important to really look at how this energy is moving. So I want to go into like bringing this into a little bit more of a forward movement here. And I mentioned earlier about how we've just entered into the new moon today, and we are into an earth sign. We've come out of fire, and now we're into earth. And I think that, you know, of course, everything is so aligned and symbolic. We have been in the fire, and now we have settled in. Okay, there's some settling in here, and with the settling in comes restlessness, and we're seeing that out there. You know, whether we're choosing to watch the news or not, you know, it's there. There's people that have been getting restless and are going to become more restless because there's a fear of, we're shutting down the economy. Okay. So this brings up a whole other thing, Sharon. We're talking about the money thing now. Okay. So it's like the economy is under threat, right? It has been, but even more so. So, you know, when we start talking about money and finances, which we have been, and now so even more, we go into all kinds of craziness. Okay. Money makes us crazy. And it's a resource. So our resources are being threatened now to where we are becoming, many of us, we're getting antsy about it. We don't like it. And so what the unconscious, the shadow says, let's go back. We got to get back to normal. We got to go back to normal. But doing that is actually going backward. So we have to be in this discomfort. We need to be in this energy, because right now the planet Uranus, it is the awakener. It's going direct. It has been in retrograde for quite some time. And what a retrograde does is it sits and it kind of just does this, right? This is the energy it does. I'm just gonna what would it be, like a wave up against the side of the rock in the ocean, where it just slowly just wears that down. That's kind of like a retrograde. And so now it's going to be moving forward. Okay. And so in that forward movement, it's like, okay, what is the new ground? What are we going to be embarking upon? Because we cannot look the old way, because Uranus energy is about innovation. It is in partner with the planet Aquarius. You know, JG brought Aquarius energy up. That's where we're moving. We're moving to innovation. How do we pivot? How do we, you know, how do we get creative here? How do we get ourselves out of the box? Okay, so the restlessness can feel in its shadow. Well, there's a part of restlessness can feel like I need to do something different. And the other part of it is I can't be in this place anymore. So just like if you sit with that for yourself, like what does that feel like in your body? Do you have any restlessness? Are you antsy? Is there any anxiety, you know, that you're getting? Are you going back to like, I got to get busy. I got to do something, right? Or are you freezing, doing nothing? Flight, fight, or freeze? You know, what's happening in your body? Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, so this is really, I have a friend and I had a group healing with her. And one of the things that she brought up was the fact that money as a source of survival taps into our primal brain. So anytime we are suffering around money, that part of us that wants to be reactive and taps into that whole, like Teresa said, the fight or flight, that's because our bodies have tons of memories of what it's like to be poor, to be oppressed, to barely be able to eat, to not have any money. Our bodies over millennia has learned about this. So one of the things that, because we're in the stage of creativity, money is also part of that unique place where things are going to break open. This person I'm talking about, she has been working with money energy for, I don't know, 10 years. And before that, she was a private banker. So she really knows a lot about money. And she has been working, when she has been communicating with money energy, that part of that energy said that we're going to be in for a huge change of how we look at money, how we use money, how it's distributed, how we perceive it. And one of the big things that as all of us here, we might want to look to is that money, it flows. It comes and it goes, and it comes and it goes. So we kind of, her word she uses is unplug from the primal brain and to allow this enlivened part of us right now that says, yeah, I want to be creative, I want to be different, I want to expand. Well, then that means we have to allow even the concept of money to flow freely, meaning we can't be afraid that we're going to be left with nothing. That's not true.
I'm going to add something really quick here, Sharon. I love that, because what came to my mind is that, like, that we're talking about here our relationship to money, which is our relationship to resources. But let's use that's money. Let's talk about that, because what we've had is money has had power over us. Yes. This is about power with, and this is something that I've been saying with the planet Pluto. When Pluto's on deck, as it is right now, we are looking at our relationship to power, our inner power. Are we going to have, is it going to have power over, or is this power with? And so right now, what it feels like, power over. We're insulated. We don't have choices, right? Things are contracted. Like what is that? Like that's this expand and evolve, remain and repeat, right? Looking at your relationship to money, that is huge, very huge, and it's going to get even more amplified, to use JG words, tongue twister. That is exactly what is occurring. And go ahead, Sharon.
No, keep going, because I just lost it.
So I'm going to go back to the second chakra, because this is where the money is the second chakra. So again, focusing for ourselves, focusing on that chakra, our ability to receive, our ability to be open, our ability to flow, our relationship to money here. This is where we will, this is where suffering will occur for us in a big way.
One of the ways that I feel might be a practical tool, if you're one of the ones that might have, you can have tons of money and still be in fear. Believe me. I mean, just because you're the richest person on the planet doesn't mean you have fear around money. One of the reasons why we create an excessive amount of money is because we have those fears. But besides all that, wherever you sit with money, it's important to know that you will always be provided for. That's a universal law in my book. So no matter how poor you are, or no matter how comfortable you are, if you notice that the twinge of fear around, I don't have quite enough here, this month, or I didn't get as many clients this month as I should have. I mean, I do this constantly. It's like, okay, I see it and I have to let go of that fear. And what happens is that's a muscle inside your body, that the more times you recognize that you're in fear and you say, okay, I'm going to let that go. And if you find that month, at the end of the month or the beginning of the month, whenever you pay your bills, it's like, lo and behold, you're okay. That's how you build that muscle. For those of you who work with me, you know that I live just above the poverty line. And I trust that I have enough clients to help me survive from month to month. And I use this philosophy. I've used it since the early 90s. And I'm always amazed and confounded of how that works. So, I want to encourage all of you to at least give it a try to see how you can build that muscle.
Thank you, Sharon. I have a question for you from Dustin. Okay, he says, hi, Sharon. Where do you see the future of healing work in these next months or year to come? What kind of healing work will people be seeking or needing? I love connecting with people in person. What kinds of innovation do you predict? Where do you think we are pivoting? There's a lot of questions in there, but
I know.
You got
I know what he's asking, and
yeah.
he probably even knows the answer I'm going to give. Well, we can't touch anybody right now. We're not essential workers, unless you are doing something that is medically involved. But even then, we have to be very careful. So one of the things that I've always put on the back burner because I was too afraid, because I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do, I became an energy worker, an energy healer. And I actually do cranial, Dustin, with no body. I do it over the phone, and it's so that other people will understand I'm a body worker, and typically I don't do typical massage. Mine is all done very subtly. And so when I work energetically, and this is something I've known for a really long time, I know that healing occurs at the speed of light. See, this is new concepts of healing that I'm going to be putting out there, and I'm taking a risk by saying this to everybody here. When I'm working with people now, 30 minutes, unbelievable. We can be talking the whole time, and their bodies are adjusting globally. Their whole body is adjusting all at the same time, plus their brains are kicking in to where they need to go. And it's just, so I know that you're saying, what's going to happen? That doesn't feel as satisfying as being face to face. But how much more closer can you get when you're in the flow of someone's energetic space? That's pretty darn close.
Yeah. So Sharon, thank you. And I want to piggyback on that. I love that question, because what is happening here is this is pushing us more into energy medicine, period, number one. And number two, energy is energy. There's no kind of contact that needs to happen. We all know that. You can be 100 miles away. None of that matters. And what I love about what's happening right now, this one aspect, is that it is pushing those who need to heighten their skills when it comes to this energy, reading and having to do it virtually. You know, when I first started doing this intuitive work, I always would work one-on-one, face-to-face, and it was, you know, it's been like 7 years now that I haven't been, and it's all done remotely. Sometimes I see people like this, and most of the time it's on the phone, and just being able to tap into their energy. I don't need all the distraction. This becomes a distraction on the outside. And the other piece here is that we are moving into an age of healing where machines and healing are going to come about in a way that they haven't been. You know, we see infrared stuff that's happening, but believe it or not, this Aquarian age is bringing forth innovation and technology and energy healing in a way that is going to blow our minds. It really is. Man and machine, the whole intuitiveness of how we see our computers work. And like, wow, sure, we can say Big Brother's listening on to some aspects, but the intuitiveness of how machines are developing, I mean, we may not see that interconnected thing happening in our lifetime, but I'm telling you, we're moving toward this very almost like, you know, this futuristic thing that's going to blow our minds. So
I totally agree that
yeah.
that's going to happen in the future. But also, I think there's a couple of things. I think there's going to be a craving for more healing touch when we come out of this virus thing. People are going to be craving human touch, and they're going to be craving healing touch, but also for the work that we as light workers are doing. You know, I know my readings, people that come to me for readings usually come because they're in some midst of transformation, but they're starting to ask deeper questions, like, why am I here? What is my purpose? You know, what am I called here to do? Why did I come to Earth? You know, what is my purpose? And it isn't that, you know, how do I hit the lotto? It isn't, you know, how do I get more money? It's like, what am I here for? And so I think there's a lot of introspection that's going on right now, and that's going to be the wave of the future, is that we're going to bring I'm hoping that we're going to bring a spirituality to the workplace that has been missing for so long. Right. I'd be interested to see how that, you know, evolves, you know.
Right. Well, I think what's also being dismantled is religion. And I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. I know, like, we don't talk religion, politics, and stuff like that, but I'm going to say that, and that we are being asked to raise our vibration to where we are living more congruently with the earth, and that it is our time. We are being asked to recognize ourselves as spiritual beings. And I imagine most of us on this call do that, but I'm talking about like in a mass way here, in a collective way, because we cannot move ourselves to the next level of evolution unless we recognize that. Moving away from the dogma of the control of what religion has into the all is one concept, the mystical truth that all is one.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, what I got a few weeks ago that's been with me, I'm even thinking of trying to make a song out of it, and I'll just share this with you, is we're moving from the me through the we to the one, undivided. Mm-hmm. You know, that, and we're getting a taste of that. This virus has touched the whole planet, and it's showing how we're really connected. But I think we're going to realize more and more that what I do, how I think, how I feel affects the planet, affects the world, you know, and that we are moving from the idea of, you know, the little baby that, you know, it's all about me, you know, to the we, where we're in little groups, to finally realizing that we are all connected and we are all from the one source, and that one source is undivided.
It's a little bit of a paradox, isn't it? Because we started off talking about how to go inward and how to find yourself.
Right.
And so it's a huge paradox, which is how the world functions anyway, is in terms of paradoxes. So, you know, it's finding that subtle balance between being empowered by your true self and then feeling empowered enough to be connected to the masses. It's it's uh, um, it's uh, it's a very tricky kind of situation. That's why we're all talking about evolving. It's not like we all of a sudden are there. That is not how it works. It works by all
Well,
of us. If it works by all of us getting in touch with our intimate selves, our vulnerable selves, and knowing ourselves well enough so that when we present ourselves into the world and connect with the world at large, we feel like a magnificent light, a part of the perfect part of the fabric that we are all connected to. Um, and so in order to do that, we have to find our own personal life to connect.
So this brings up, I don't know how many of you have heard this concept, but of course we all know the, PTS. And so there's also a concept called PTG, which is post-traumatic growth. And this is when there is a highly, like the situation we are in now, a highly stressful situation in our lives where we actually have there is like a growth that happens because of this crisis. And so what I want to encourage, and if this is something that fits whoever the listeners are, is that that you don't want to just wait for this to be over. Doesn't mean you've got to go out and do a bunch of stuff, because number one, we can't go out. But it's not about going into to flight and fight and getting using that masculine energy, but it is about innovating yourself. It is about pivoting yourself in a way that can get you into doing something different. And you don't have to actually be actualizing it in that moment, but trying different things, whether it's reading, picking up a new book, whether it's trying to, being on this webinar tonight, something that you've never done before or thought you'd listen to. It's that kind of thing. How can you expand your mind? How can you expand your spirit during this time? Because we're being asked to expand in being confined, right? And as I had said on the last, I don't know if I said it then, but I've been talking about like being incarcerated, right? It's like we're being incarcerated right now. And so what do you do with this time? Is it being wasted away? And I hate to sound harsh on that, but this is how we make changes. And as we move forward astrologically, the astrology here move forward into 2021. This is a really unpredictable, type of a year. It's a transitional year for us. So we're going to move out of this place that we're in, and then we're going to settle into, okay, this is the new norm. And there's a retrograde happening. I'm not saying the virus is coming back. I'm saying that there's going to be a retrograde here, meaning we're going to get to revisit this in a way where it's like, wait a minute, I thought I kind of worked through some of that fear, some of the stuff that was going on for me at this time, and it's coming up again. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Just like one would understand a Mercury retrograde, whoa, it's slowing us back. We're having to re-examine something. This time will be re-examined again. So that's part of the energy of how it's going to be moving here. So I just want to give you that heads up, because it's really important to pay attention to the now and be present.
Does anybody have any questions out there? Any concerns, or I know it's kind of risky because you're going to reveal something in front of a lot of people, but
Scott just asked, is this a time for rediscovery? Absolutely. It absolutely is. Yeah. Whether it's even rediscovering something that we have given up because we haven't had the time to do it, and that filled our heart. It can be something as easy and simple as that.
I also think that rediscovery just reinforces that there's a part of you that never dies, but is always exists. Your talents, your inner knowing, who you are, even if you left a part of it behind, like I still haven't achieved it, but I used to love to sing, and I let that go. And you know, I still have the urge to want to do that, but it's I lost it. And so, you know, it's a part of who I am. And so I'm sure there's a parts of all of you that want to nurture, re-water something that is hidden behind fear or survival, or I'll do it when I grow up, or I'll do it when I retire. Well, you know, bring it now, because that is a part of your fabric. That is a part of your essence.
Yeah. And Christina commented, she said, acting authentically, living,
Yes.
acting authentically, living, knowing and trusting that all will be well. So our faith is being tested here, you know, and this is where we see what do we do when we're being challenged in a particular way. And then Janet asked, how long do you see this Aquarian period lasting? Well, here's the thing is, that's kind of a real complex answer to that. There's a complex answer to that question. So we had entered in, I don't have a timeline, like 3 or 4 weeks ago into Aquarius in Saturn, and we're going to remain here until the end of June. And then we're going to go back into Capricorn. I know that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but just know it's there and then it won't be. And then it's coming back. It'll come back in the fall. So we're going to have another revisit of this, and we will remain in this Aquarian energy after that for the next 2.5 years in Saturn. So, you know, anytime a planet moves into a new sign, we're going to feel that effect. And we did, because Saturn is about restriction, contraction, okay? And Aquarius energies is opening. So those two are paradoxical, like they don't go together. So what happened is we got this social like contraction, right? Because Aquarius is a very social sign. Yeah, and raising or saying yes, and like exactly. Okay, so we got a hit of it. Like, ooh, if we're coming into social consciousness here, we have to see where we're unconscious first, and that's what's happening. Where are we unconscious? We're seeing it, folks.
Yeah.
And we'll get an opportunity to revisit that, like you said,
Yes.
Teresa, that we'll get to revisit that. But I think what you said is very, very powerful, especially about this Aquarius. Take advantage of that. This is the time to dream. This is the time to, just like what Sharon said, you know, there's a higher version of you. Your higher self is whispering to you all the time, urging you with desires. Listen to those desires. What do you desire? Start envisioning that.
Yeah.
Start holding on to that. You know, I'm going to go way out on a limb because, as you know, I've got some channeled information. And I agree with the information that I'm getting, that it's really, really valid. We're so caught up into the everyday of this is who I am that we don't realize that there is a much grander version of ourselves waiting to be expressed here and now. Here and now, in spite of what's going on. We can spend time with ourselves. Take a portion of your day, you know, and go into meditation. You know, go into the idea of, I'm just going to do outrageous dreaming. I'm going to just imagine what's the most outrageous thing that I can be and do that will bring me joy. And believe me, it'll pale in comparison to the real you. That's your potential. You know, I think we play small for so long and think that that's who we are, but we are so much grander than that. So much grander than that.
Yes. So as we come to the end of this time here, right before we finish here this last minute, JG is going to read something that he was channeled, that was channeled through him to him. And before I do that, though, I just kind of want to bring a little last piece here. And JG had mentioned this a little bit ago about, you know, who are we? And, you know, one of my taglines in my in my on my website, the first thing is like, who are you here to be? I mean, because that's really like the question for us. And it's not be as in identification of an external self, but as an internal being, right? And that right there is the like the illumination of our soul path. When we come to that place, then we realize that we are more than just this. So Sharon, do you want to, anything you want to say before we begin to close this to our listeners?
Um, I guess the thing I want to say is, there are a myriad of healers out there. And I know that we're not going through this moment unscathed. I don't care who you are. We all got stuff, okay? And I can't say enough to reach out to whoever is your guru, your healer, your whoever. A lot of them are doing it online now or over the phone, and there's a lot of group healings going on. Reach out, just give it a try. I mean, we're living in a phenomenal time where people like all of you are taking a risk and doing things to help others in unimaginable ways. And so this is the opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you. And then before JG, you do your thing, I just want to also let people know that in the chat right now, you can copy and paste. Our contact information is there. And then, me, I'm going to send a follow-up email to this, so you'll get that information. And we're still offering our special offers that we did on the last webinar. If you don't know them, you'll get them in the email. Let's see what else. And what was the link for the Finding Light recording? Beverly wants to know. What you can do is just go to the top of this chat if you can access it, and you'll see it. It says link to replay Finding Light in Uncertainty. And what I'll do is I'll actually send that out in the email as well, the link, in case you don't catch it. So I want to say thank you for everybody to be on that has come on tonight. But JG, can you go ahead and shoot us that prayer? We're at 6:15 right now, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but definitely.
Okay. Okay. This information came to me on April 21st in the evening, and it started out with one group of guides that had come through, and then I'll stop for a second, and then the last part is through I believe, the Federation of Souls, which is my collective group of souls that I work with on the other side. And here it goes. I am my brother's keeper. Come sit at my table. Enjoy the fruits of my labor. Drink the warm wine of my Father and be refreshed. I set before you a plate of the finest visions, ladled with some heartfelt gravy. Rest here. Be comforted and serene, tender-hearted and expectant. You are the evolution of the desires that have been called forth for this time of awakening. All of you are in the process of admitting that the transition period is over. You are no longer on threshold. You are no longer looking toward the portal of glorious migration. You have already entered into the realm of purity, a purity that transcends your imaginings. Your ascension was not of the physical, but the spiritual and etheric bodies. Stimulation and vibrational uplifting has occurred, and the valley is below. You have risen to heavenly purpose. It is designed by this transmission that we have gathered here to express the divinity. Those influences are our loving urgings to remind you that all is forgiven. By forgiven, we mean your idea of atonement. Nevertheless, you are stripping away the veil of.
And in those last words of the veil of, what are you stripping away? And that is an awesome meditative question. to contemplate and ponder. So again, I want to thank, of course, Sharon and JG for being on this mastermind webinar with me, and all of you who took the time out of your day today and join us, and for your comments in the chats, really appreciated. And so I just want to say thank you, of course, again, and love and light to all of you. Namaste. Thank you.
Namaste.